My name is Megan, and I used to believe that hard work always paid off. I was the type of employee every company dreams of: first in, last out, weekends sacrificed for deadlines, and always ready with innovative solutions to any problem. I never complained, never asked for recognition, and always supported my team. I was the perfect corporate soldier. Looking back, I can't believe how naive I was. That's probably why James, my boss, saw me as the perfect target. I'd been working at Nexus Technologies for 3 years as a senior product developer. The company was growing rapidly and competition for advancement was fierce. James had been my direct supervisor for the past 18 months, a charismatic, well-connected manager who talked a big game but rarely delivered anything substantial. He was all style, no substance, but somehow he always managed to come out on top. It all started 6 months ago when our CEO announced a major initiative to revamp our flagship product. The company was losing market share to more innovative competitors, and we needed something revolutionary to regain our position. Each department was asked to develop proposals, with the most promising ideas being fast-tracked for development. This was my chance to shine. I had been thinking about a fundamental redesign of our product for months, sketching ideas during lunch breaks and working through concepts on weekends. I had identified a critical flaw in our architecture that, if fixed, would not only improve performance but enable entirely new features our competitors couldn't match. For weeks, I worked tirelessly on my proposal. I built prototypes, ran simulations, created detailed documentation, and even developed a working demo to showcase the potential. It wasn't just an incremental improvement, it was a complete paradigm shift for our product. I poured my heart and soul into this project, often staying until midnight, fueled by nothing but coffee and the belief that this could be my big break. The day before submissions were due, I scheduled a meeting with James to review my proposal. I wanted his input before finalizing everything for the executive review. He seemed distracted during our meeting, occasionally nodding while scrolling through his phone, but he agreed the idea had potential. "This looks promising, Megan. Let me review it more thoroughly tonight and give you my thoughts in the morning," he said, taking my carefully prepared presentation deck and prototype documentation. I felt a twinge of unease at his lack of enthusiasm but brushed it off. James wasn't a technical person. He probably didn't fully grasp the significance of what I was proposing. At least he was taking it home to review, which showed some level of interest. The next morning, I arrived early, eager to hear James's feedback and make any final adjustments before the big executive presentation. But James wasn't at his desk. Unusual, since he typically rolled in around 9:30, well after most of the team was settled in. At 10 a.m., the entire department received an email from the CEO. "Join us in the main conference room at 11 for an exciting announcement about our product revitalization initiative." Strange, the review committee wasn't supposed to meet until next week. Why the sudden announcement? I checked with colleagues who had also submitted proposals, but they were equally confused. At 11, we all filed into the conference room. The CEO stood at the front, beaming with excitement, while the executive team sat in the first row. And there, seated among them, looking uncharacteristically well-groomed in a crisp new suit, was James. "Today is a momentous day for Nexus," the CEO began. "One of our team members has developed a truly visionary approach to our product that will revolutionize our market position. I'm so impressed with this proposal that I've decided to fast-track it immediately, bypassing our usual review process." My heart began to race. Could it be? Had my work made such an impression that it warranted this kind of response? "James has shown exceptional insight and innovation with his proposal," the CEO continued, gesturing to my boss. "His architectural redesign addresses fundamental limitations in our current product while opening up entirely new market opportunities." My blood ran cold. James? His proposal? As James walked up to the front of the room, PowerPoint clicker in hand, I felt like I was watching a nightmare unfold in slow motion. The first slide appeared on the screen. My title, but with his name where mine should have been. Slide after slide of my work, my diagrams, my data, my words, all presented as his brilliant innovation. He even had my prototype, which he demonstrated with the flourish of a magician pulling a rabbit from a hat. The room erupted in applause while I sat frozen, unable to process the magnitude of what was happening. In recognition of this outstanding contribution, the CEO announced as the presentation concluded, I'm pleased to appoint James as our new Director of Product Strategy effective immediately. He'll be leading a special task force to implement this vision with full resources and executive support. More applause, congratulatory handshakes, James soaking it all in with a modest smile that made me want to scream. Several colleagues turned to me with puzzled expressions. They knew I'd been working on something big, had seen the late nights and intense focus. A few whispered questions came my way, but I couldn't respond. I was in shock. As the meeting dispersed, I sat motionless, trying to comprehend what had just happened. James caught my eye across the room and had the audacity to give me a small nod, as if we shared a secret understanding. The message was clear: say nothing and perhaps you'll be rewarded later. Rock the boat and you'll be finished. I spent the rest of that day in a daze, alternating between crushing despair and blinding rage. I considered marching straight to the CEO, but what proof did I have? It would be my word against James's, and he had just become the company's rising star. I had shared my work with him willingly, and most of the documentation now bore his name. It would look like sour grapes from a jealous subordinate. That night, I'd barely slept. By morning, despair had given way to cold, focused anger. James hadn't just stolen my idea, he had stolen my future, my recognition, my chance to advance. And he expected me to smile and accept it. I wouldn't confront him directly. I wouldn't go to HR with accusations I couldn't prove. No, I would be smarter than that. I would play the long game. "Congratulations on the promotion," I said with a perfect smile when I saw him the next day. "I'm excited to see the project move forward." The relief on his face was palpable. He had expected tears, accusations, or resignation, not cheerful acceptance. "Thanks, Megan. I knew you'd understand the bigger picture. I'll make sure you're on the implementation team." "I'd like that," I replied. "After all, no one knows the concept better than me, except you, of course." He missed the edge in my voice, too busy basking in his success and my apparent submission. Over the next few weeks, I became James's most valuable ally. I volunteered for the implementation team, offered to draft the project plan, and took detailed notes in every meeting. I was helpful, insightful, and utterly indispensable. James grew to rely on me completely, often sending me to brief other departments or answer technical questions he couldn't handle. "You're making me look good, Megan," he said one day, with the self-satisfied chuckle of a man who thought he had gotten away with theft. "That's what I'm here for," I replied with a pleasant smile. Meanwhile, I was carefully documenting everything. I recovered earlier versions of my work from personal backups showing timestamps and progressive development. I found witnesses who had seen me working on the project for months. I collected emails where I had discussed elements of the concept with colleagues long before the supposed eureka moment James claimed to have had. Most importantly, I began building relationships with the executive team. As James's right hand on the project, I had legitimate reasons to interact with senior leadership. I made sure every interaction showcased my deep understanding of the architecture, my attention to detail, and my unwavering commitment to the project's success. The executives began to notice the discrepancy. In meetings, James would fumble technical questions that I would smoothly answer. Documents I prepared were comprehensive and insightful, while his contributions were vague and often confused. Gradually, people started coming to me directly with questions, bypassing James entirely. 3 months into the project, the company announced a major industry conference where our revolutionary new approach would be unveiled. James would give the keynote presentation, introducing himself to the world as the visionary behind Nexus's reinvention. The date was set for exactly 1 month later, just enough time for me to complete my plan. "James, we should make sure the presentation for the conference is bulletproof," I suggested. "The entire industry will be watching." "Absolutely," he agreed, already envisioning his triumph. "Can you draft something for me to review?" "Of course. I'll also prepare some Q&A materials so you're ready for anything the audience might ask." I spent the next 3 weeks creating the most compelling presentation of my career. Every slide was meticulously crafted, every transition perfect, every data point irrefutable. The narrative was clear, compelling, and positioned James as the brilliant mind behind it all. I even included personal anecdotes he could share about his development process, knowing he would memorize them verbatim. Simultaneously, I was setting the stage for what would come next. I had quietly reached out to an old college friend who now worked as a technology reporter for a major industry publication. We met for coffee, ostensibly to catch up, and the conversation naturally turned to work. I couldn't say much, I told her, but you might want to attend the Nexus keynote at the conference. There's going to be a very interesting story there. A week before the conference, I requested a meeting with our CEO and CTO. I want to make sure we're fully prepared for the technical deep dive after James's keynote, I explained. Some of the questions might get quite specialized. You've done an amazing job supporting this project, Megan, the CEO said. We've all noticed your contributions. I smiled. Thank you. I care deeply about this project and want to see it succeed. The day of the conference arrived. James was a bundle of nervous energy, repeatedly reviewing the presentation I had prepared. I helped him rehearse, offering encouragement and support. You're going to be great, I assured him. Just remember, if you get stuck on a technical question, you can always defer to the implementation details we've prepared for the follow-up session. The keynote was scheduled for 10 a.m. At 9:15, as James was doing final preparations backstage, I approached him with a USB drive. I made a few last-minute improvements to the slides, I said. Nothing major, just some cleaner transitions and updated graphics. It flows much better now. He took the drive gratefully. You're a lifesaver, Megan. I don't know what I'd do without you. That's what I'm here for, I replied, watching as he replaced the presentation file with my updated version without even reviewing it. He trusted me completely. At 9:45, the auditorium began filling with industry professionals, tech journalists, and competitors. Our entire executive team was seated in the front row. I spotted my friend from the technology publication, Notepad ready, seated near the center. At 9:55, James was welcomed on stage to enthusiastic applause. He looked confident, polished, every inch the successful executive about to change the industry. Our CEO beamed proudly from the front row. Good morning, James began, his voice strong and clear. Today, I'm going to show you the future of our industry. He clicked to advance to the first slide, and there it was, exactly as I had prepared it. He launched into the introduction I had written for him, hitting every point perfectly. The audience was engaged, nodding along as he described the problems with current approaches and hinted at the revolutionary solution to come. Everything was going according to plan. Then he clicked to advance to what should have been a diagram of the new architecture. Instead, the screen displayed a completely different slide, a side-by-side comparison of my original project documentation with timestamps and his proposal submitted the very next day. James froze, momentarily confused. The audience murmured. He clicked again, thinking it was a glitch. The next slide showed emails I had sent to colleagues discussing the concept months before his innovation. Another click revealed my original notes and sketches dated and witnessed. Another showed meeting invitations where I had discussed elements of the architecture with team members, meetings James had never attended. There seems to be a problem with the presentation, James stammered, frantically clicking forward, hoping to find his expected slides. But each new slide was more damning than the last. The evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable, and playing out in front of the entire industry. The final slide displayed a simple message: innovation deserves recognition, so does theft. The room had gone completely silent. Every eye moved between the screen, James's ashen face, and the executive team in the front row. Our CEO stood up, his expression thunderous. James, he said, his voice carrying in the silent room, I think we need to pause this presentation. But it was too late. My friend from the technology publication was already typing furiously on her laptop. Other journalists were snapping photos of the damning slides. Competitors were whispering among themselves, eyes wide with shock and delight at our public implosion. I can explain, James said, his voice cracking. This is a misunderstanding. Perhaps I can clarify, I said, standing up from my seat in the second row. All eyes turned to me. My name is Megan Stevens. I'm the actual creator of the architecture you were about to see today. I have all the original documentation, development logs, and witness statements to prove it. I'd be happy to continue the presentation and answer any technical questions about my work. The CEO looked from James to me, then back to the screen still displaying the evidence of theft. His face had moved from anger to calculation. Damage control was now the priority. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "we appear to have had a misattribution of credit internally. I suggest a 15-minute break, after which Miss Stevens will continue the technical presentation." As the audience buzzed with excitement at the unexpected drama, James finally found his voice. "This is sabotage," he hissed at me. "You set me up to fail." "No, James," I replied calmly. "I set you up to be exactly who you are." The next 15 minutes were chaotic. The executive team huddled in a corner with legal counsel. James was escorted from the building, and I was approached by the CEO, who looked both furious and impressed. "That was quite a show," he said quietly. "Not how I would have preferred to handle this situation." "I apologize for the drama," I replied, "but not for ensuring the truth came to light. I tried the proper channels first." He raised an eyebrow. "Did you?" "3 separate emails to your office requesting a meeting to discuss ethical concerns about the project leadership. All went unanswered. I had the receipts for those, too." He had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I see. Well, we have a room full of people waiting to hear about this revolutionary technology. Are you prepared to present it properly?" "I've been ready for 6 months," I replied. I gave the remainder of the keynote presentation and received a standing ovation. My friend's article about both the technology and the dramatic exposure of corporate idea theft went viral within hours. By evening, James had been terminated, and I had been offered his position as Director of Product Strategy, with a substantial raise and equity package. The company spent weeks doing damage control, positioning themselves as champions of integrity who took immediate action when misconduct was discovered. I played along publicly, while privately ensuring my new contract included explicit intellectual property protections and credit guarantees. I sometimes wonder if I could have handled the situation differently. Perhaps there was a less dramatic way to reclaim what was mine. But then I remember the look on James's face when he realized what was happening. That moment when he understood exactly how it feels to have everything you've worked for stripped away in an instant. That's when I know I made the right choice, because some lessons need to be public to be truly learned, and some promotions deserve to be the worst day of someone's life. My story spread throughout the industry like wildfire. I received messages from dozens of people who had experienced similar situations. Brilliant ideas stolen, credit redirected, careers stalled while others prospered from their work. Many told me I had given them courage to stand up for themselves. James, meanwhile, became unhireable in our industry. The last I heard, he had moved across the country and switched careers entirely. Sometimes I feel a twinge of guilt about that, but it passes quickly. He made his choice when he decided to build his success on someone else's foundation. As for me, I've flourished in my new role. Our product has become the industry standard, and I've been recognized with innovation awards and speaking engagements at major conferences. More importantly, I've built a team culture where credit is always given where it's due and every contribution is valued regardless of who makes it. I learned that justice doesn't always come through official channels. Sometimes you have to orchestrate it yourself, and while revenge might not be the noblest motivation, there's something deeply satisfying about watching karma unfold in real time, especially when you're the one who set it in motion. So if you're out there working late nights on something brilliant while someone else is positioning themselves to take the credit, remember my story. Document everything, build your allies carefully, and when the time comes to reveal the truth, make sure it happens on a stage so big that no one can possibly ignore it. Because the sweetest success isn't just achieving your goals, it's making sure that those who tried to stand in your way have a front row seat to your triumph.